A very unique gathering. I've learned a lot from a lot of the speakers, definitely yesterday and today. I loved the bold vision that Alex had for state. Something that Vishal said, the gentleman from SAP, which is technology removes layers and empowers people, is something that has been the inspiration behind what I want to talk to you guys about today. And I loved the beautiful philosophical interpretation about stealing. They steal because they love from us. I just didn't realize the IRS loved me so much. But having said that, I'm over here today to talk about an idea that I feel really passionate about. And it's an idea that I believe will play a small part or a movement to connect two very disconnected groups. On the one hand, we have half the world's population that's younger than 29. And on the other hand, we've got 10, 15,000 maybe policymakers who are making decisions that affect not just all of us, but mostly the young people. And so what we're trying to do is figure out a way to collect those billions of young voices and in some small way influence and have them help design the world they want to live in. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about. It all begins with a story. So what do a talking cat, my dad, a billion youngsters, a few exceptional entrepreneurs and friends, and the United Nations Foundation have in common? And just bear with me over here because this is a useful backdrop, and then I'll explain the idea and the movement. For the past few years, till very recently, I spent most of my life trying to build a global, mobile community, mostly for young people, on the back of a series of animated characters and mobile apps. And these animated characters and mobile apps had the unique distinction of actually mimicking anything and everything that a user did, repeating, moving, gesturing. And in fact, when I first spoke to Deepak about this, I think he had suggested that one of the reasons why Talking Tom, one of our star characters, the talking cat, and others had taken off, is we had tapped into something which might be akin to the mythical trickster in all of us. So when that happened, and so we built this company, and a couple of years ago, early last year, we reached an important milestone for the company, which was we reached 100 million active users, which in the mobile nerd world is reasonably significant because these are the people that actually use your apps, they download them, they pay, all that stuff. And I remember talking to my father, and my father said, well, that's really great, I don't really understand what you do. But having said that, what are these people saying? What are they doing? What's their voice? And so that struck in me as the idea that here we were, mathematically and technically, the 12th or 13th largest country of people that were pretty engaged every month. But we really had no idea, not only what they were doing and saying, but could we channel what they were doing and saying in a way that actually did good? And entertainment and good, to me, are connected. So fast forward to today, I left the Talking Tom company very recently, and I spend my time doing two things nowadays. I spend my time helping corporations and organizations and nonprofits figure out mobile. And what is it that makes a mobile community very unique, much more than a town square, much more than a village, much more than an online community. And it truly is a remarkable tribe where the trick to understanding mobile is actually understanding anthropology, not technology. So I spent some time helping companies figure out mobile, and then I spent some time with the United Nations, helping the United Nations and 9 entrepreneurs collectively with the United Nations Foundation, trying to basically figure out if we can take this collective voice of 1 billion or more young people and channel it towards policymakers in a way that makes an impact. So that's kind of the background over here. I'll go through very quickly what the idea is, little bit about how it came about, and then what we hope to achieve. And if you guys have any questions or you want to follow up after, I'm more than happy to do so. I've spoken a little bit about this. A lot of disenfranchised youth United Nations has been a good platform for influencing decision and policy. And what's different this time is that we are connected in a way that's never been as pervasive before. The thing about mobile that I've always been fascinated by, it's actually a manifestation of three other things that I think define when technology and humanity intersect. It's pervasive, it's predictive, and it's perceptive. And anytime you have a technology that does those three things, the chances of it intersecting with humanity in a way that could be positive are generally high. So the idea is actually reasonably straightforward. We want to try and find a way to leverage the power of these mobile and digital communities, not recreate one from scratch. And I'll talk about what these communities are, where they exist, and basically create a global platform that leverages and allows the next generation to be a lot more active in the world that they want to live in. And so again, the marketplace is, you've got half the world's population on one side, you've got 15,000 policymakers on the other. What kind of platform and dialogue channels that collective voice? In particular, we have a specific project called the Millennial Development Goals, or the Sustainable Development Goals, that's sponsored by the United Nations Foundation. And one of our test pilots for this platform is, in the next 12 months, can we get 10 million votes from the global youth on what are called the MDGs, and I'll describe that in a moment. They're so-called the to-do list for the world that most nations have to sign up for. The third is to launch a Young UN Summit and give them the recognition that they deserve. Again, these are not across national boundaries, these are across boundaries of global youth. We want to try to make a global movement in partnership with industry and other nonprofits. And then, lastly but not least, try to create a virtual UN seat that truly is a symbolic representation and beyond of what this global voice means. So that's in general the idea. Of course, when you start a project like this as a technology entrepreneur and as an aspiring anthropologist, you start with a very simple question: where is the tribe and how do you get them? Distribution and access is by far the most important question. So we looked at a couple of different places, and what we found is that physical networks are fantastic. They take a while, though. And so if you just look at some of the physical networks out there and the brands where the global youth hang out, there's some phenomenal networks out there. It takes time, and the level of engagement and the real-timeness of their feedback isn't always as quick as we'd like it to be. But if you move beyond that, and you actually find digital networks and mobile networks, and I'll give an example of our company only because it's one such company and there's many others, and by no means the only example. But a couple of interesting facts. So from a standpoint of what the company has is we have over 1 billion users that have downloaded this app. And about 200 million of these are pretty active. Now, the interesting thing is about 45% of our users are actually older than 25. So what we thought was something that youngsters would enjoy turns out actually appealed to the kid in every one of us. The funny thing, and the thing that surprised us a little bit, was that these apps actually have been used a lot more for communicating, creating, and sharing as much as they have been for pure entertainment value. So the numbers that surprised us were the engaged column, where 73% of our users take 7 or more actions. And these actions could be buying something, sharing something, creating a YouTube video, posting something on Facebook, gifting something, dressing up the characters in your favorite football team's outfit, what have you. If one of those 7 actions was channeled for something that actually was towards a collective good, we feel that this is just one network where that could be powerful. And we have about 600 million views on YouTube. Not one of these videos has been created by us. These are characters and representations of these characters that are created by brands themselves. So we thought it was quite powerful that if one network could do this, and by no means should this be limited to any one network, what could we actually get done if we combine multiple networks and got these 4 or 5 billion potential users involved? And then something happened that made this more real. Last April 5th, for World Autism Day, we did this experiment. And the experiment was basically to see if we could help the campaign for World Autism Day, and it was called the Light It Up Blue campaign. And the idea was, could we actually get our users to contribute to buy virtual T-shirts, literally virtual blue T-shirts, to light up the Empire State Building with the color blue, which is the World Autism Day color. And what we found was that it literally took us half a day to program this stuff. But what we found is that they raised more money in those 48 hours than they had for the entire campaign last year. And it did surprise us a little bit, because I think what it showed us is that this community that we were building commercially had a massive amount of untapped good. It just needed to be channeled in a way that was meaningful and not overly serious, and still made an impact. So with that, we basically try to work backwards with the United Nations, and these are some of the lessons, and I keep talking about the mobile community being a tribe. But here are 4 or 5 things that we found that we're trying to inculcate in the UN movement with the youth about what we feel works to get the young people involved on mobile. And some of these might seem intuitive, and some of these might seem exceptionally nerdy, but I'll go through a few very quickly. The first one was, none of our interactions on this platform made you a winner or a loser. And we made it very comfortable to be cool, because there was no judgment in the platform. That's one thing that we think is critical for global youth to get involved, is while recognition is important, competition, and actually this concept of gamification, is actually not the most useful way to get participation. What we also found, it's all about design. And we would always say 3 clicks to nirvana, but that's a little odd in this crowd. So 3 clicks to gratification was our mantra. And every now and then, you had to figure out whatever the user wanted to do. If it wasn't 3 clicks, it just literally wouldn't make our product. We also found that it was all about self-expression. The thing about, I think, Deepak's comment about the mythical trickster was that we didn't try to pretend to be a game that was amusing you. We just gave you the canvas and the paint, and you communicated, you created based on whatever you thought was important. So we were a platform for self-expression and creativity, rather than basically, being a very regimented, structured approach to how you actually live your life or play a game. And the last thing was, we designed in perfect flaws. And one of the things that I think most people, when you look around, especially right now, is I sense a level of authenticity amongst the global youth, at least the mobile, digitally connected global youth, that I think is absolutely amazing. And so one example of the perfect flaw is one of our leading characters, and one who was mimicked the most, was a teenage princess who was supposed to be 18, Layla. And it took a lot of people, especially in the industry, the media industry, the entertainment industry, we got a lot of flack for the fact that we had given our princess, the 18-year-old princess, a squint. And it was deliberate. We had given another one of our characters, who was supposed to be a 22-year-old dog, a limp. And the reason we did these things is perfection is boring. And it's intimidating. And it creates a boundary that you want to push against. So what we were always trying to find out is, you have to find the perfect flaw, because that's how people will relate to you. And my biggest issue with communication with the youth in any movement has been this absurd notion of perfection being a starting point for aspiration. So some of these lessons, the question is, how do we actually apply it to the UN project? I'll go through these very quickly. The ecosystem is not for the faint at heart. So we have 5 different constituents that we're working with. The first one, of course, is the UN, and on the left-hand side are the policymakers in the key member states. These are people that actually can change policies that affect young people. On the right, we have access to digitally connected youth, and these are global. So in China, it could be completely different networks like RenRen or Weibo. It might be other more well-recognized networks in other parts of the world. The trick over here is to develop fun and creative campaigns, and you'll start seeing some examples of that come out that are approaching very serious topics in an absurdly silly way. And I think those two are complementary. We have some good sponsors, and we're trying to get this show on the road. So that's basically what we're trying to do. One last comment over here is a specific milestone for us is, as I talked about, the Millennial Development Goals. And these goals were started in 2000 by the UN Secretary General, and they were called the to-do list for the world. And the premise was that you identify a list of issues that people think are important, leaders, and you get people to vote on them. And so this list is currently, I think, about 16 issues. It's being run by a UN organization called myworld2015.org. And they currently have quite a lot of traction, decent traction. But what we're trying to figure out is, can we make that number 10 million in the next 12 months, which would be by far the highest amount of input that has come from the grassroots to every nation, by nation, and then at the UN level. So that's what we're trying to do. We have this goal for the next 12 months. My personal favorite would be, these 16 were developed by somebody sitting in various leadership offices and policymakers in the UN. To me, the most interesting is the plus sign below, which is number 17, that says the just a priority. Because the one thing that we've learned is that you can't decide what's important for people, and things will always come up organically from the grassroots that surprise you. So while we're actually getting this survey done right now, I'm most interested to see what would happen if they were suggesting priorities and that was rolling back up to the nation's policymakers. So that's basically it, and this is one of my favorite Indian stars, Amir Khan, and he and many other people have become somewhat supporters and goodwill ambassadors for this program to get the survey done. And so we're off to the races. We have, I think, about 835 people have input this as of, I think, last night. And we have some good partners, but this journey has just begun. And again, I think if we can make a small dent on how we connect half the world's population to 15,000 policymakers, then this would be a good project. Thank you.
So, you've been here right from the start, right? So you know everything about the Consciousness Project.
Don't test me.
But to mobilize the billion children all over the world to do good, and sometimes, I know the UN is a great partner, and we have Ray Chambers speaking this afternoon, representing a major effort for the UN. But at some point, can we also bypass the UN and all these big institutions and go directly to places like Akshay Patra, to what Vandana is doing? You know, because, I mean, children are authentic, they have emotions, they're moved easily. It doesn't cost a lot to mobilize their love in action.
Yeah, the short answer, Deepak, is yes. The goal of this platform is to be a platform to have their own voice. The initial audience is the UN because there's a very specific mandate that they have, but this platform is open. It's available for any nonprofit or any other organization that wants to see what's important to them. And again, we're trying to do it in a way so that it's not limited to any one, either UN, or nonprofit, or quite frankly, even any one network. So it's open by design.
You know, as I've been listening to you and some of the other very entrepreneurial ideas and all the power of digital technology, and Ariana Huffington here, who's been going to speak in the afternoon, it almost occurs to me, as you're kind of breaking these barriers, that 20 years from now, nation states may be irrelevant. We may have no democracy, but netocracy, where you get the world to vote. You get the world to vote on these issues. We don't want hungry children. Yeah. We cannot tolerate racism. Yeah. We will not allow for child labor. And the world votes through this global brain. So I think it's time for you guys all to start a brainstorm together.
Yeah, I think that's right.
He's an exceptionally successful entrepreneur who's made more money than you can imagine, but now he's going to help us.
Thank you.
I'm getting a commitment from you.
Thank you.